I don't know if you obviously can't tell through social media, but I am 4'9". I'm very little. I compete at rooster weight. So I was one of the 4 women at my gym for a very long time, and trying to take down one of the bigger guys was one of my biggest goals when I first started. And when I finally did it, wow, I was the happiest person in the world.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host Travis. Today I have a very special guest in Mary-Daizy Held. She is a brown belt training down in Arizona. She's been doing jiu-jitsu since 2015. Came from the Muay Thai background and striking, and then got into jiu-jitsu and has been falling in love with it ever since. She wrestled a little bit in high school with her and her husband back in junior high. They wrestled a little bit in junior high. And she's been doing jiu-jitsu now since 2015 and absolutely loves it. She's a heavy competitor. She recently became a mom with her first child. And we talk a lot about in this episode, starting off with her at the beginning of her journey and how she got into jiu-jitsu. Then we kind of transition into training pregnant and the stigma around training pregnancy and during pregnancy, and just her insight into everything. And then we jump into more heavily into her competition mindset and how to prepare for competition and how she competes and how she's looking at competing again now after having a child. And so I wanted this episode to be to basically every parent out there once again, but to the women that do listen that might be moms or that might be nervous about competing. And Mary is 4'9" and is a rooster weight. So she's tiny. And so hearing her perspective on competing and everything like that was phenomenal. Lots of fun, a lot of laughs, great guest. Let me know what you guys think. Join Elbros Facebook community page. Check out everything down in the description below for all the sponsors. Don't forget to use Elbows Tight 25 for Jordan Pressinger's theory course. Jordan teaches jiu-jitsu. Link is going to be down in the description below. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home. If you make it all the way to the EBI overtime, let me know what you guys think. And we'll catch you later. Peace. All right, everyone. I have a very special guest today, another Arizonian. Is that how you say it? Would it be Arizonian, right?
We say Phoenician.
Phoenician. So another person from Arizona. You're like the 3rd or 4th person from Arizona that I've had on the show. It feels like the jiu-jitsu scene down in Arizona is like really getting huge down there. Has it always been that way?
It's growing so quickly. Actually, your previous guest, Gustavo Dantes, was the black belt who gave my instructor his black belt.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, small world. Yeah.
There's like I've interviewed like Matthew Gillette, Michael Courier, and a couple other people, and I'm like, man, like Jay Pages is down there. There's like a whole bunch of like big name people in Arizona. And like I mentioned before, my dad lives down in Arizona. I really want to go down there because I kind of want to like gym hop and like meet all these people that I've interviewed and get to roll with them and stuff like that. I think jiu-jitsu has such a great community to where you're able to do something like that. And like, I don't know. I think it'd be a really cool. Did you originally start jiu-jitsu in Arizona or did you start somewhere else?
I started in Arizona, but if you do ever make it out here, we have a ton of gyms very close to each other. Like Gustavo Dante's gym is a stone throw away from my gym, and then Jay Pages is just a couple miles south. So you would definitely enjoy it.
Yeah. So how's competition, like the competition scene down there with so many gyms? I'm like San Diego. Obviously, you can compete almost every weekend if you wanted to. Is it kind of the same down there?
We have a lot of tournaments out here. AZ BJJ is a big one that we do typically. They, I think, have about 4 to 6 tournaments a year. We try to hit those every time they come around. And then we have several like AGF, Nagas, grappling industries type of tournaments that, sometimes we do. But I think the biggest following the biggest tournament that has a following is AZ BJJ.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and just jump in a little bit of who you are first. So you recently had a baby. Congratulations on that. It's a journey all in itself, and there's lots of parallels, as I'm sure you can tell, with jiu-jitsu. But you're also a brown belt. You've been training for many years, competed quite a bit. What's something that you would also like to bring light to that most people might not think of when they think of you?
I think most people think of me as a competitor, but I'm also a coach. I teach the 6:30 classes at my academy, and I also run the kids program as well. So, if anyone's ever interested, I think the 6:30 classes are great for beginners. A lot of the times we have evening classes, and when a new beginner wants to come into the evening classes, it's just full of the competitors, and they don't really get much one-on-one. So if anyone is interested in getting some lessons that are with a smaller group, come into my 6:30 class. Yeah.
And that you said that was 6:30 a.m.?
6:30 a.m., yes.
Yeah, man, I wish we had like a 6:30 a.m. I tell my wife all the time, if we had like a morning class in my academy, I would switch my work schedule around to be able to make it to that, because it's kind of like working out. If you can get it done first thing in the morning, then you don't have to worry about it the rest of the
and
day.
You feel great too. It's a great way to start your day.
Yeah. So let's go into how you got into jiu-jitsu. What initially drew you to jiu-jitsu, and how long have you been doing it?
I started jiu-jitsu in 2015, and so I wrestled a little bit in junior high and high school. That's where I met my husband, and we were wrestling right before his deployment, and I took him down, and then he like guillotined me and like armbarred me, and I'm like, what is this witchcraft? What is this? And he's like, oh, it's jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, okay, cool. So that kind of just stuck in my head. He deployed, and then I secretly trained jiu-jitsu just so when he would get back, I can kind of do the same things.
That's funny. So what was it like wrestling in junior high as a female?
It started off as a joke. Me and some two friends were like, hey, let's just join the wrestling team. See what it's like. We're not really cheerleader types. So we hopped in, and then we ended up really enjoying it. I wrestled a little bit of 7th grade, and then 8th grade I wrestled, and into the second meet I dislocated my elbow. Ooh. So that was the end of my middle school career. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started in 2015. Mm-hmm. What was that final catalyst to start your journey?
So my gym is not just a jiu-jitsu gym. It's an MMA gym. So we have the blue mats, which is kickboxing, and then we have the red mats, which is jiu-jitsu. And I first started with Muay Thai kickboxing, and I trained for a really long time stand-up. And I asked my coach, I'm like, hey, do you think I could do a fight? And he goes, no. No, you're way too honest. Small. You're way too small. Go try jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, oh, all right, sure. So I just stuck to just jiu-jitsu and dropped the kickboxing, and I loved it. It's very challenging. It's rewarding when you finally get something that you've been working on for so long. So it just kind of stuck with it.
What were the first like big hurdles that you experienced in your jiu-jitsu journey, coming from that kickboxing side to the jiu-jitsu side?
Not to disrespect anyone, but stand-up is very like mind-numbing. You just go 1, 2, 3, kick. It's pretty easy, but jiu-jitsu you have to think about a lot. You have to think about your next move. You think about what are they going to do if I try this, or is it going to work on this person because it worked on a white belt? So it's that's probably the biggest hurdle I had to go through.
Support for today's episode comes from Waterboy. Waterboy is a hydration powder scientifically formulated to cut your hangover time in half. There are other hydration packs on the market, but nothing comes anywhere close to fighting those Sunday scaries like Waterboy. With 0 sugar and over 3 times the electrolytes of Liquid IV, your hangover doesn't even stand a chance. Unlike other competitors, Waterboy has added ingredients beyond just hydration to help with that nausea, the anxiety, and fatigue. For a limited time, our listeners will get 15% off your entire order with code ELBOWSTIGHT at waterboy.com. Waterboy not only sent me the weekend recovery, but they also sent me the athletic hydration recovery. And I must say, using the other electrolytes drinks, Waterboy is by far my favorite. Liquid IV has way too much sugar and causes me to have like a stomachache during practice. And Element is good, but it's a little too salty for my taste. Waterboy has great taste and isn't overpowering with that sodium. Inside each stick, there's ginger that helps with the nausea and to make your tummy feel better. And there is also L-theanine to help calm your nerves and reduce your anxiety. Their scientifically backed formula truly brings back you from the dead. Waterboy is also gluten-free, caffeine-free, dairy-free, vegan, and most importantly, made in the USA. Hundreds of thousands of people already trust Waterboy as their hangover cure. For a limited time, my listeners will get 15% off when you use the code ELBOWSTIGHT at waterboy.com. That's 15% off with code ELBOWSTIGHT at waterboy.com. Waterboy has got you recovered.
Yeah, I think it's a big eye opener too for people that come from a striking martial art, whether it's Taekwondo, karate, Muay Thai, or something like that. And like the second you disable their legs, they're like, I don't know what to do from here.
Yeah.
like you put them on their back and they're like, they're just like reaching for something, grabbing for something. And it's a big eye opener. I wrestled a little bit in high school, like just for a semester, my freshman year. Okay. And I thought even just that little bit was going to help me out when I first started jiu-jitsu. And it kind of did, like body awareness wise. But then I was just like, no, dude, like this is like a whole different animal over here. Like this is, I would die. I always say like when I first started my journey, it was an eye opener. I would die in the streets if someone had just a little bit of training and I ended up fighting them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, dude, if this guy just took me to the ground, he would just like, there's no way. I got manhandled by like an 18-year-old white belt with one stripe. He had just, you know what I mean? It was just like such a big eye opener. Yeah. You posted on your story the other day that now that you're a mother, that not being able to like defend your child or stick up for your child is like a big fear of yours. It's like how has like that impacted your jiu-jitsu journey now?
I try to think about it differently. When I first started, I wasn't seeing jiu-jitsu as a form of self-defense. I kind of just saw it as training, trying to be athletic and compete. But now that I'm a mom, I do see it as a self-defense, like when I'm putting the car seat in and my back is towards the street, like what am I going to do if someone takes my back? How do I have foot trip them or, wrist control, something like that. So I definitely roll with a different purpose now.
Yeah. I've been trying to get my wife into it and I've been trying for 5 years. She did like back in the day, we had like a women's self-defense, like a small women's self-defense class. Mm-hmm. And I'm not knocking women's self-defense classes at all, especially if it's how women get into training more regularly, because it can be an eye-opener to realize, like, just once again, like I mentioned before, just a little bit of training can make a big difference. And she did that, and it wasn't really her thing. And so now she's kind of like reigniting that, like, oh man, I kind of want to do it. So I'm trying to coerce her into it. How would you, if you could give all the husbands out there trying to get their wives into jiu-jitsu, how should we coerce them to like, come on, it's okay, like let's do this?
So I don't want to sound like a bad guy or anything, but when the majority of us women get attacked, it ends up being on the ground, like in a position similar to the closed guard. And so if you know how to attack somebody from your legs wrapped around them, I think that's very beneficial for every woman out there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or, defending the wrist control, defending a takedown, and just the simple things like that. Or at least not stopping it, but making enough noise or enough of a ruckus and defense to cause some attention or some awareness so somebody can hear you if something does happen.
Yeah, that's something I'm like trying to show my wife is like, I've been like just showing her things here and there, like, hey, this is how, like, if someone were to like go in to take you down, this is a guillotine. Like, what you're gonna do is you're gonna do this. Like, just something super simple. She tried to. My oldest son, he's 15. He's like taller than I am already. But the other day he came downstairs. She's like, hey, let me show you something that Travis just showed me, and she tries to do a guillotine on him. He's like, I have no idea what you're trying to do right now, Mom. And he trains also. I was like, you got a little bit more practice. One time of me showing you, is it gonna do it justice? You know what I mean? And that's something that I honestly really enjoy about jiu-jitsu is that there's not that instant gratification. You really, really have to work hard for you, like you mentioned earlier, for you to be able to achieve even just like sometimes the smallest goals can really impact your journey. What was your first big victory in your jiu-jitsu journey?
So I don't know if you obviously can't tell through social media, but I am 4'9". I'm
Oh,
very
wow.
little. I'm very short. I can beat at rooster weight. So I was one of the four women at my gym for a very long time, and trying to take down one of the bigger guys was one of my biggest goals when I first started. And when I finally did it, wow, I was I was the happiest person in the world.
You know, like sit there like, I did it. That's
I
right.
did
I told you.
it. Yeah. Where's my gold medal?
Yeah. Hey, that I mean, I suck at takedowns. So if I take down another full grown man, I think it's a victory. I competed for
Oh,
the
yeah.
first time a couple months ago, and I scored a takedown on my first match in my first jiu-jitsu competition ever, and I was like ecstatic. You know what I mean? Like afterwards, it's like it didn't even matter if I lost from then on. Like I was like, I just got a takedown. Like holy crap! How many times
That's a
do you
win in
see?
itself.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, how many times, and even when I was there, how many times do you see white belts or even blue belts? Well, actually, anyone that competes just lock horns like a ram, and they're just like holding on to
Yeah.
grips for dear life. You know what I mean? You're like, dude, one of you guys have got to do something. Like, this is it's 3.5 minutes of standing and pushing each other back and forth.
Good for you.
How soon after you started jiu-jitsu did you start competing?
I think I started no-gi first, but 30 days within throwing a gi on, my coach was like, hey, we have a tournament next month.
Wow.
Yeah. So that one didn't go very well. I don't remember anything, but I don't remember anything but running to my coach crying. So,
Really?
yeah. It was
Hey,
pretty bad.
but you put yourself out there. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't compete for the first time until I'm a 3-stripe blue belt, been training for, over 5 years, and I finally competed for the first time. And people talk about like you should compete at white belt because if you compete later in your journey, you're going to regret not doing it earlier. And it
Okay.
happened to me 100%. Like I wish I would have done it as a white belt at least once, just because I felt like as a white belt, I was so much better um, as a white belt than I am as a blue belt because I was able to train a lot more. And
Okay.
now, I'm sure you can attest to like life is completely different once you start having kids. Like,
Yeah.
it's so much harder to get to training or to fit it in and accommodate other people in your life. How has training changed for you since becoming a mom?
So I used to train maybe 6, 7 days a week, and I was at the gym for 2, 3 hours a day. So I trained full time, if you want to say. And then now I'm only training at my 6:30 class on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I teach the kids Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I roll with some of my, my 10-year-old students.
You're like, look, bro, we're the same size. All right.
Yeah, let's go.
No, that's fun though. I mean, I heard the saying for the first time the other day, or a couple weeks ago, is like, he who teaches learns twice.
Mhm.
And I just recently started being able to coach too, and it's like made me kind of obviously reanalyze the way I look at techniques and how someone would see it from the outside looking in. You know what I mean? Like obviously
Yes.
you're a very experienced coach. So now I'm like, man, how am I going to teach this technique to someone? Like,
Yeah.
how do I make it digestible to where, we all see it out there, 45 steps for someone trying to teach a single technique. And by the end of it, everyone's eye glazed over, taking a nap. You know what I mean? How do you coach as someone that's been so experienced, especially with kids? Because kids are a whole different animal.
Well, first off, congratulations
Thank you.
on
Thank you.
coaching. Yeah, it's a big step. So congrats. So I find that teaching the kids is a little bit easier than teaching adults,
Mm.
just because with kids you can, like neon belly, I call it Spider-Man stance,
Oh,
or when you're trying to search for a cross-collar choke, making a rainbow over their head. These are things that I feel comfortable telling a kid. Than an adult, I'm like, okay, go over the head with your arm. And there's something that my coach once told me. He said, "You don't know a move unless you can teach it."
mm.
Yeah, and so I find that with the younger kids, I just give them the bread and the bread and butter, right? Oh, not bread and butter. I'm sorry, the meat and potatoes. I give them the meat and potatoes, and then when I go and teach the adults the next day, I give them a little bit more details to whatever I just taught the kids. I mean, I think that helps me a lot understand the move a little bit better too.
How do you study coaching, or do you like for technique in class, or like how do you prepare for class?
Um, so because we compete pretty often, I take a look at, the footage of what the students do. I take a lot of what they did great on and keep sharpening those tools or challenging those moves. And then I take a look at what they do need work on. And then we kind of focus on that for a couple of weeks, and we put it into like specifics training where we just drill starting in that position and then resetting in that same position just to see what different options they have. So, for mount, instead of arms up, arms down, or what happens when you trap and roll, or when you push to single leg X. So we give them different options from that one position.
Have you heard of like the ecological approach when it comes to coaching? It's big with like Greg Souders, Josh McKinney. There's
No.
a BJJ mental model. So it's kind of like what you just mentioned. It was
Okay.
more along the lines of like, it's kind of like they say games, but really it's just like situational sparring or task oriented sparring, to where it's like, hey, so someone's going to be in mount. Now I want you to get to single leg X, and then you just tell them that. And then however they get there, then they're automatically developing these skills and these problem solvings without you necessarily having to say, hey, step A is so we're going to frame on the hips, you're going to bridge and, throw the leg over. Is that something that you kind of do now that you hear about it, or is it more the
Yes,
tradition?
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How has coaching changed since you first started coaching to now then?
I definitely didn't take it as serious as I should have when I first started. I was, a fresh blue belt at the time, and I think I was the highest rank in the academy.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I just had, my maybe 2-3 stripe blue belt, and then a bunch of white belts and first dayers. I started with the women's class, and I just taught little things here and there. I never really taught one move. Because I felt like when I started and there was a lesson of, let's start with mounted armbar. I'm like, okay, I did the move, I learned it. How am I going to get there? Right. So I teach more of like a game plan. So I go, if this person starts on their leg, ankle pick, and just throw their legs to the side and sit on their stomach. It's very simple, very easy verbiage for them a day one person to understand. And then you're there. You're in the mounted position to try that armbar we learned in class. So it's kind of how I'm now doing classes for the newer people.
Do you like study instructionals or anything like that to like stay up to? I mean, because like jiu-jitsu is changing so much nowadays. There's like so much knowledge out there. Do you study instructionals or other like not professional, but like high-end match footage, or to like learn from them to help better for your students?
I like to say I'm pretty old school, like my coach. So I'm not much on instructionals unless I really love the athlete and their move. But I do more of following the black belts in my division and kind of studying their game because we're similar size. So I'm not going to learn from, some I don't want to name any names, but I don't want to order someone's instructional if I don't have the same body type or if we don't have similar games, if it's not something that I'm going to do. So I typically just study the brown belts and the black belts in my division, or the male rooster weights that are a little bit closer to my size. And I just watch their footage, their competition footage, and I tend to watch all of their matches just to kind of see what they have in common. And then maybe if it's something I'm not doing, I need to add to my toolbox, I'll go ahead and try to add it.
When do you look to getting back into competing, or do you plan on not competing anymore?
Oh, I'm planning on competing ASAP. Yeah.
What is it like now preparing yourself for competition? Now that, like we mentioned, you're not able to dedicate as much time as you could before. How do you approach competition prep now that you're thinking about doing it again?
Probably just using my time wisely. Taking up that hour and a half, 30 minutes, and I have a purpose in that class. Every roll I'm going with an intention of, I'm going to try a toe hold on this person, or try not to get my guard passed, or I need to sweep them, or, try not to let something happen to me. So I definitely train with more of an intent now. But the preparation, I'm kind of nervous about. Just because right now my husband and I both train, and we have an open mat at our gym on the weekends, and we both want to train, but we also have a newborn.
Yeah.
So you can't just train and then run to your newborn all sweaty and try to, console them, soothe them.
Yeah.
So it takes a village. It really does take a village to take care of my child and do what I need to do. I have wonderful friends and teammates that will watch the baby while I run and take a shower after rounds. Or, I'm like, hey, let's roll, but right next to the baby, and don't get me too sweaty, or let's just,
Yeah.
things like that. I just, funny you mentioned that. I just saw Karen Antunes. I don't know how to say her name. Karen, she's a black belt at Checkmat. She just competed at Masters Worlds. And she posted she's made a post about how difficult it is to get two toddlers, ready, fed, and then her husband on board, watching the kids, and then in the middle of matches, breastfeeding, and then having to, who's going to watch them while she's competing. And I'm kind of nervous, but I'm also excited.
Yeah, man, my wife, like, to your point, women are incredible. First of all, like, you guys, if you guys are determined to do something, you let nothing stand in the way. You know what I mean? Like, and that is something that I like. My wife inspires me when she does that. Like, if she's like, I'm gonna do this, she freaking does it. She's a former bodybuilder, and she competed, was very competitive when it came to bodybuilding. And watching her, it was like it was like a superpower to me, and not only that, but like giving birth too. That was like a moment in my life. Let me tell you, seeing it twice, I was like, this is incredible. You know what I mean?
Superwoman,
dude. It's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
I can't like give her enough. I try to like tell her, like, babe, I don't think you understand. Like, from the outside looking in, watching that is like crazy to me. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think if she wanted to do jujitsu, man, I just feel like the way she is, she would just absolutely crush it, because that determination and whatnot. And like you spoke about, like, she's breastfeeding in between matches and whatnot. It's also, you mentioned in there that you don't want to get too sweaty. When I come home from jujitsu, my kids run up to me and they're like, "Daddy," and I'm like, "Don't touch me." Like, I'm like disgusting right now. You know what I mean? So
it gets pretty bad in there.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's guys in my school that have had staph multiple times, ringworm multiple times. I'm, knock on wood, I haven't had it any yet, but it's something that I do fear. And luckily, there's products out there that help out with that. How do you recover from jujitsu after training and whatnot? Like, what does your post jujitsu class look like?
So we typically every Wednesday, grateful shout out to Shannon. After class on Wednesdays, she leads this stretching circle.
Oh.
So she kind of just takes us within 5-10 minutes of stretching a certain limb or body part, and then I kind of take that, and then I go home and I do it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, until she gives us a new routine the next Wednesday. So I do a lot of stretching after, a lot of mobility work. I try to stay hydrated. It's disgusting how much sweat we lose. So drinking electrolytes every day, and plus, breastfeeding takes it out of you. So drinking a lot of electrolytes and staying hydrated is very important. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm the healthiest person in the world, because sometimes being a mom, you just want to grab something quick. Especially when you're pregnant. You're just like, just give me Popeyes, please.
I mean, there's worse. So what was it like training pregnant? Like, there's a lot of stigma out there that, women are delicate when they're pregnant, and to a point, like, women are, right. There's are precautions, but I learned this from, like I mentioned, watching my wife and being amazed by her. Women can do a lot of things pregnant that most people probably don't even realize. What was it like training pregnant?
It was definitely different. I went from wearing my extra small rash guards to my husband's large rash guards. And a lot of people didn't want to roll with me, I understand why they didn't want to roll with me. But the people that did, they were very gentle. They were very nice. I had to change my game a little bit. I feel like I'm more of a smash passer. I'll wrestle you down and grind my head into your chest and kind of play a little dirty. And I went from that to guard playing, something gentle and sweeps here and there. No more takedowns. So I definitely just changed it a little bit. I couldn't take anyone's back anymore. I had to get into the leg entanglement game a little bit. But yeah, that's probably the only thing I changed.
Are you still doing some of those things now post-pregnancy, postpartum?
Yes, definitely. I had to have an emergency C-section, so it took me a little bit longer to recover. So I'm definitely not doing any takedowns right now. Guard is a little difficult because of the core, core strength that it takes. So I'm doing a lot of 50-50, a lot of closed guard, just submissions from the closed guard. So yeah, it's a little different.
What was that first class like back on the mats after everything?
I was definitely nervous, only because I did have the C-section. I didn't want to overdo it. And my husband's going to listen to this, but
sorry.
Sorry. I went back to teaching after 3 weeks.
Oh,
and
wow.
My doctor was like, you need to stay off the mats for about 4 to 6 months. I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. No, thanks. So I went back to teaching 3 weeks, and for the kids, I have their warm-ups. We practice handstands going across the mat. And I'm like, I wonder if I could still do it. So I go ahead and do it, and I tore some stitches.
Oh, no.
It was terrible. Yeah. So I had to go back to being in the bed and not being able to get up, not being able to train. So then hopping back into my second class was a little bit scary, but we went and got through it. I have a lot of help. I have assistant coaches now in my classes, so that way, I don't overdo it. Or if there's certain moves that I'm planning on teaching that I can't do, I call them, they show up and they help me.
One thing you mentioned earlier is now that you're back and with so little time is about training with intention. And I'm right there with you. Like when I go to class now, I have to train with intent. Like same thing as I'm going to work on guard retention today. Or I want to hit the move of the day that we learned in class at least 2 or 3 times. And I didn't necessarily think that way when I had more opportunity to train. I kind of took advantage of it. And so I just find it funny how we don't think about we do think about training with intention, but we don't take full advantage of it until it's like 100% necessary. You know what I mean? Like if I were to go back in class and train with the amount of intent I do now 4 or 5 times a week, I couldn't even imagine the amount of progression I would have. Do you ever think about that now that, you're, like you mentioned, you're much more intentful with everything?
Oh, definitely. And it's one of those, you don't really know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely tough. I just like you said, working on the guard retention, that's probably one of the biggest things that I'm working on right now is just my guard retention. For the longest time, when I was pregnant, I would just kind of let them do whatever they really wanted. And when you're coaching, you kind of do the same thing. You kind of let your students kind of work around you and just so you can kind of see what they have. And I felt like that hindered me a little bit. And now I'm going back and I'm trying to relearn jiu-jitsu. Like, oh, I am good at this. I shouldn't be letting them pass my guard just because, I want them to learn. So I'm just kind of trying to go back to step 1 and remember my fundamentals.
What makes a good training partner? Because you mentioned in there, not giving too much or too little resistance to your training partner. What makes a good uke or tori? Is it tori or the Japanese word for it?
It's someone that is going in there with good intentions. I don't like dead fishes. Somebody that's just, you go for a toriando and their legs just flop. Or somebody that you can't communicate with. Before a round, I'll go, hey, I want to work on my toe holds today, and they're going to do everything possible to keep me from getting there. Rather than someone that's just, hey, let's play catch and release, and I'm like, oh, that's not really what I want to do. So definitely somebody that can communicate with you and is going in there with intent, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like training partners are how everyone gets better in
Mm-hmm.
jujitsu, and it's as a white belt, I definitely didn't think about it as much as I do now, obviously, because I was like, I'm just gonna try my hardest to do everything I possibly can
Yeah,
without
and
with like complete
survive.
right, with complete disregard for what the other person wants to do. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on now. It's like it's like I'm just gonna do whatever I need to do
Mm-hmm.
to get on the mat and whatnot. And I try to tell people when they first come in, especially brand new white belts that are kind of intimidated about rolling.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you hear, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm nervous," or I don't know anything. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's true to a certain extent, but the best way to get better at jujitsu and rolling is to do it, right? Like no
Mm-hmm.
amount of watching it from the sidelines is gonna get you better at jujitsu. You gotta start implementing it against live resistance. How do
Oh,
you
definitely.
coerce your newer students into rolling if they're a little bit hesitant about it?
I always tell them to try the move of the day. Move of the day is the key to progression, right? So it's easy to do a mount and armbar on someone that's letting you do it, letting you practice during those couple minutes that you get. But when you are trying to do it on a resisting person, it completely changes it. And so when they're a little bit nervous, I tend to tell them, just don't worry about anything. Don't worry about anything but getting the move of the day, because that's one thing you do know how to do, or at least you just learned how to do it. So just try it, see if it works, see if it's effective, see what you can do to change it based on your body type, or on your partner's reactions. So I always preach, try the move of the day.
Fresh ball fall is upon us, and you need to be in the festive spirit. Light a candle and get some pumpkin spice, and make sure your balls look nice with today's sponsor, Manscaped. Nature may clear the leaves for their trees, but you'll need Manscaped to get ready for that sweater weather. Get your pants puppies prepared for cuffing season with a trim that's refreshing as the fall breeze, going to manscaped.com using code ETP20 for 20% off and free shipping. I remember the first time I trimmed my balls and it was a nightmare. To give a visual idea of how bad it was, my balls looked like Jim Carrey's The Grinch when he shaved his face for the first time. Now, instead of hearing, "Look at that hack job," in my head, now I hear, "Oh, those are some good looking jewels." By now you've heard of them, but it's time you join the 9 million men worldwide using Manscaped to get the kit that covers it all, the Performance Package 4.0. Bring the fall in right and get 20% off and free shipping with code ETP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using code ETP20. As the leaves fall, make sure you have it all with Manscaped.
So, I mean, it's smart, right?
Yeah.
Because even if, and I think communication is, especially when you first start, people are, like I mentioned, like they're quick to say, like, I don't know what to do or
Mhm.
anything like that, instead of saying, hey, can we just do this? You know what I mean? Like laying down like a situation like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but can we just work on the move of the day?
Yeah.
Having that open communication with their training partner. I was just coaching on Wednesday, and there was only a couple people that came to the fundamentals, and I partnered with a guy that's been training maybe 2 months, maybe,
Mhm.
and we were doing one of the games, and he's like, "Oh man, I don't know what to do here." And I'm like, "Listen to what the game is. I just want you to make 4 points of contact. Like you don't
Okay.
have to like grip me like I'm gonna pass your guard or anything like that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just moving around, and I just want you to get 4 points of contact." And so slowly it started to register to him, through the couple rounds. He's like, okay, now it's starting to make sense. Now he's relaxing. And I
Yeah.
think it just comes with more mat experience and
Mhm.
setting that environment to where people can have that communication. You know what I mean? Like, is that something you look
Mhm.
for too when you're pairing people up, even maybe in class?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm not going to go pair, the new 120-pound girl with a 180-pound wrestler. um, So yeah, it's definitely something I look for. We try to give one of the higher ranks the new person every time, just because they're a little bit more controlled. We never pair new people together because there's not really much, no offense, that you can learn from somebody who just started 2 months ago, rather than somebody who has a little bit more experience. They're more controlled. Their egos, not as big as somebody who just started. So yeah.
How do you handle white belts coaching each other in your class? Because we all know, especially if we've done jiu-jitsu for a while, there's a difference between coaching and then like kind of helping them through the
Yeah.
technique. How do you handle when you're like, hey guys, I'm the coach here. I don't really, like calm down. Like, how do you handle that whole situation?
I think that anybody can learn from anybody. I definitely think that a white belt might have a different insight on a certain move than I do. I mean, I tend to just kind of listen. I'm one of those that just listens, and if I object to anything, I'll definitely speak up about it. But when it comes to helping them out, I'm all for it. When it comes to coaching them, I think we're a little bit where I'm just standing a little bit over their shoulder, like, hey, take everything with a grain of salt.
That's not exactly how I explained it. So just keep that in mind. Yeah. So let's jump over to your like you mentioned before or at the very beginning, is like a lot of people know you as a competitor. Let's kind of jump over to like the competitive side of your jiu-jitsu journey. You mentioned it was like 30 days in and you don't really remember what much. How long did it take you to be comfortable with competing and like building who you are as a competitor?
I think my second tournament, the first one, it definitely motivated me, and like, let's not let that happen ever again. I don't like that feeling of crying and feeling defeated after I've worked so hard for something that I really wanted. So I went full force and just trained a lot. I used to own my own business back in the day, so I trained whenever I wanted. So I would just go in from the 11 and 12 o'clock classes, 1 o'clock class, and I'd come in for the 5 and 6 in the evening. So I was there training with a little bit of a purpose. I was very hungry. I was asking many, many questions. And I worked my way to, just competing at a local Naga event. I did no gi and gi. And I just focused on, I love my close guard. Close guard, I think, is king. It's probably my favorite guard. So I just tried to work my close guard, and I ended up winning the tournament. Yeah, or my division.
And that was as a white belt in
That was just a
your
white belt.
second, yeah. So through your white belt journey, how did your game plan kind of change and deviate? Did you, as you started learning new skills and more about yourself?
Well, because I have a little bit of that wrestling background, I was very, what my coach calls very bleh, right? Where you just kind of want to bulldoze everybody and run them over and squish them and control them.
Blasting doubles, blasting.
Yes, exactly. So I went from doing that in my early white belt days to finding a guard I really like the closed guard. It's a very controlling position. I'm like, okay, if it opens up, let me try Spider or De La Hiva. I went from trying to just be this mean, heavy, grimy player to flowing a little bit more like water through the guards.
Trying to build that little bit more of like elegance, I guess you could say, because there's some competitors out there that watching them compete, like Andre Galvao, like if you watch like someone that's been competing for longer than I've been alive, it feels like there's like a beautifulness to it. Nicholas Marigali, you know what I mean? Like all these people, I'm like watching them, like, dude, these guys are at the highest level, competing against the highest level people, and like they just look fluid. You know what I mean? You're like, holy crap, these guys look great.
Yeah.
When people first started off in competing, what would be the biggest thing that they should probably focus on to kind of help build that game a little bit quicker?
I would say finding a position they like, and then excuse me, finding a position that they like. So, for instance, I have this one student, Chris, who really was a big fan of cross guard. And from the very beginning, he goes, how can I get there? What do I do if they, they block this or they block that? Or what can I transition to? So I just told him, find one guard and then find little deviations, transitions, and other entries to the guard. So I would say finding a move or a position that you like.
When you first got promoted to blue belt and you did your first competition as blue belt, did you ever have any like imposter syndrome feeling, or like because even me as a blue belt, sometimes I roll with white belts or other blue belts, and I'm like, man, I am getting crushed right now. Did you ever have like a little bit of a worry that after being promoted and competing for the first time?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I just was one of the only females when when I first started the gym. And so I just kind of felt like, oh, maybe I'm being promoted because I'm the only female and they want to get more in. And I questioned it a lot. There was a time when my coach wanted to give me a stripe and I'm like, no, 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 please keep it. Like, I don't think I'm worthy of it. And he's like, what's wrong with you? So yeah, there definitely was a little bit of an imposter syndrome. And it took competing to see that, hey, I am worthy of this blue belt. I earned this and I worked hard, and clearly the results show that I deserved it.
What was the biggest difference from competing as a white belt and competing as a blue belt?
I think just the more the technical aspect. You can be a blue belt for 2 years. You could be a blue belt. When you compete against a blue belt, you can be competing against a 4-stripe blue belt who's been there for almost 2 years, or a freshly new blue belt, or a white belt with college wrestling experience. So you don't know. And I think that that was really tough for me, is, figuring out how am I going to compete against this almost purple belt, or do they have college experience, and do they train nogi and gi? And it was difficult, but I just kept on working my fundamentals and getting into class and trying just to elevate my game.
It's funny you mentioned the stripes on the belt, because I think there's a psychological game when it comes to competing with like belts, stripes, and whatnot. I one of the guys I competed with in my first tournament, Ben, he just won Masters Worlds as a blue belt. Been competing been doing jiu-jitsu for 3 years, won Masters World, and just got promoted to purple belt. And
Wow.
and so one thing I noticed was he never has stripes on his belt when he competes, right? And in high school wrestling, if I saw someone with a tattoo, I was like, this guy's gonna destroy me. You know what I mean? And I kind of see that as like stripes on a belt now if you're competing. You know what I mean? You're like, you see someone with 4 stripes, you're like, oh my God, this person is going to crush me. They have 4 stripes on their belt. They're almost the next belt. I don't even stand a chance. You know what I mean? Like, how do you overcome that, if that is something that you kind of can relate to?
It's definitely tough. I get nervous, but my coach one time goes, my husband was nervous to compete against this 4-stripe blue belt at the time. And he goes, oh my God, look, coach, he has 4 stripes. And he was like reading his patch. He's like, who's Kiko France? And my coach goes, who the F cares? You are Tyler Held and you train at AZ Combat. Who cares?
Yeah.
They kind of try to approach it with that mentality of, who cares? I am who I am, and I know that I'm good enough to be there.
What's been the hardest belt to compete at?
I think technique wise, I would say purple, just because everyone's game is kind of evolving. At that time, you've got your fundamentals down. You've found a guard that you really like, or a certain game that you like to play. But as far as getting competitors to compete against you, I would say brown. It's been very difficult to find someone my size, and just even females in general to compete. Yeah.
Do you think they're like women practitioners are turned off about competing? Because I hear that a lot, is not necessarily because they don't want to compete or anything like that, but because it is hard for a lot of women to find brackets that are enough for them to even compete. Like, why do you think that is? It's just because there's not enough women in competing, or is there kind of like this reverse psychology of like, I'm not going to have enough people to compete, so I'm just not going to compete. You know what I mean?
Definitely the reverse psychology. There's a ton of women in jiu-jitsu, a ton. And especially in Arizona, I competed against the same girl from white belt all the way to brown belt. Same girl every time. And her and I are actually really good friends now. I see her at Pans, I see her at Worlds, I see her at the local tournaments. So women, they are there. I just don't think that many of them sign up for that purpose. Yeah, of maybe there's no one's going to sign up, so I just won't do it.
Yeah, I've signed up for a couple different competitions, and even in the local scene, I kind of feel that too because I've done it before where I signed up for a competition and then backed out the last minute because it's like one person, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna go up in a weight class because I'm 5'8", 5'9", 208-pound weight class, and so if I go up a weight class, that's a big weight class. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I'm like, it's not even worth it to me if one person, I'm not going to pay $80 to go to
Mhm.
an open mat, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to go,
Yeah.
I'll just go to their academy and roll with them. And if they beat me, then I would have known.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you think we could get more women to compete in jiu-jitsu? Like, what do you think would be like a good start to bringing more women into competing? So you don't have that issue of competing against, I mean, I don't think it's an issue, but you know what I mean? Like, it's always nice to be able to roll with a variety of people and compete against a variety of people.
My biggest um, selling point, I guess I would say, is don't you want to try it on somebody your same rank, your same size, and your same age? Like, don't you want to see if this works or if it's foo-foo? Um, that's probably how I get most women to sign up. And Arizona, we have a Copa Bella tournament that's actually ran by Gustavo Dantes every
Hmm.
year in April. And my academy is a two-time champion of that tournament because we have a humongous women's team. And
Really?
they're all,
That's
yeah,
cool.
very large women's team, white belt all the way to brown belt. And we push each other a lot. We push each other towards greatness and we hold each other accountable. And we're like, hey, I thought you said you wanted to compete. Tournament's coming up. um, Challenge yourself, go out there, have fun, and just remind them this is for fun. It's not for you know you're not winning the world. It's just for fun to test out what you know, and then just to see if it works. Really,
Yeah, that was the biggest eye opener for me competing for the first time
Mhm.
is I was nervous because I was like, no one wants to get exposed as, like
Yeah.
a fake blue belt or something like that. And I wasn't necessarily, because I've been a blue belt, 3/4 of the time I've been doing jujitsu. And so I wasn't necessarily nervous about getting exposed as someone, but there's like you mentioned, there's people out there that you're like, how are you even a blue belt, dude? Like, what are you doing? You should
Yeah.
go to the next rank. Like I got it. You're good.
Yeah.
But I was surprised on how good I did myself. You know what I mean? I was like,
Mhm.
man, that was like a reassurance for me that the blue belt around my waist is, I mean, I'm not as good as I want to be, but I definitely feel much better now at my rank. And psychologically, it was super cool seeing. I won one, lost two, lost one by submission, and lost one by points. But it was more of a gas tank thing. I was dead. Like I was absolutely dead. But it was a good feeling knowing and like
Mhm.
I'm definitely blue belt material, higher
Yeah.
blue belt material. But when it comes to your gas tank in competition, it is a whole different animal. How do you prepare
Oh,
yourself for like competing when it comes to your endurance and conditioning?
well, our academy has a great structured training like week. I think I love the way our academy has it set up. Monday through Wednesday, we teach a lesson. We start on Monday, add some details Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday we have a specifics or situational drilling day. So we just drill, mount, getting out of mount, getting out of the back, attacking. Um, the front headlock choke or some situational sparring Thursday. And then we have our competition class on Fridays. And the Thursday, Friday classes are definitely recommend it if you're going to compete, just because it gives you that competition style feeling where, everyone there is going to show up and they're going to go 100%. My husband used to run the classes, and he would always tell everybody in the beginning of class, he would get everyone together. And he goes, if you're here to work hard, work hard. If you're not, there's a door, and so you're going in there with this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm already nervous. This person's trying to rip my head off. It's not just kind of, chill like a Monday class where you're just like chit-chatting about your weekend and kind of flowing through the roles and talking. So Thursdays, situational sparring, and then the Friday competition class, I definitely recommend for someone that wants to get their gas tank, a little bit full. And then Saturdays and Sundays, open mats, getting in some roles with people that you don't know. Because when you go into an open mat, someone else's gym, it's kind of like a competition feeling, right? You still get the nerves. You've never seen these people before.
Yeah.
You don't know what their game is. They don't know your game. It's not like your regular training room where your partner knows what you're going to go for. So I recommend competition classes and open mats. That's kind of what I do.
Man, it's funny you mentioned that, because I've noticed too, when I go to my friends' academies or my friends come to my academy, if they're a colored belt, it's like sharks in the water. They're like, who is this person? Who are we gonna? Are they good? Are they nice? When it comes to dropping in at someone's academy, the first time I ever drop into someone's academy, I never even remotely roll hard or try to prove a point or something like that, because I want them to feel that I am there for a purpose, to, make friends and to have a good time, and not just there to prove a point or something like that.
Yeah.
But if I go back again, then I kind of start turning it up like I'm good or something like that. But you know what I mean? Like I try to roll a little bit harder. How do you approach dropping in at other academies, especially as a brown belt? I mean, you're up there. People are going to see that brown belt and automatically have this idea in their head about how good you should be and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't ever take my A game to open mats. My coach would disown me if I did. But whenever we learn a certain move or a certain lesson, or I see a move that I want to try, I try it in the training room first, with my friends, with somebody that I feel comfortable with. And then I go, okay, it's working on them. Let's go try it on someone else before we bring it to the competition mats. So then you take it to an open mat, and again, they don't know your game. You don't know their game. And so you kind of get to try it and see different defenses for your certain move. And then, like you said, we start turning it up a notch. Yeah.
When it comes to competition day, does your husband corner you, or is it your actual coach? Or do you even I know there's some people out there don't even like coaches coaching them. Do you have your husband or your actual coach coaching you, or do you like no one out there?
I've had both of them. Whenever we go out of town, it's always my husband. I always have my husband in my corner. I love him so much. He's always been there for me since day one. He will forfeit tournaments just so I can compete. He's so sweet. But it's typically, if it's going to be in state, it's definitely my head instructor. I mean, my husband's on the sidelines, of course, trying to yell as well.
How do you like being coached when you're in competition? Do you want to hear step-by-step movement, time code, just encouragement? What do you prefer when it comes to on the competition mat being coached?
Lots of words of encouragement. And if I don't see something, which I don't know everything, right? And my coach sees something, way before I do, I love it when he tells me ahead of time. Or when I'm in a certain position and he goes, you know what to do there? And I'm like, I do know what to do there. Or when he goes, you're in your guard. This is where you want to be. This is your spot. I'm like, this is my spot. I get a little bit of, encouragement and some confidence, because it is scary being on the competition mats. And for those people that don't like to be coached, everyone's different, but I definitely need it. And I love it.
Do you have your coach warming you up, telling you what to do before mat or before you step on the mats? Like, what is it like pre-stepping on the mat?
It's actually typically just my husband. My coach is all over the place with other competitors.
Oh, gotcha.
And he tends to make his rounds, whenever he finds me. But having my husband there to remind me who I am, what I'm capable of, and that I deserve to be there really helps.
I need to get my wife in the jiu-jitsu. You're
Yeah.
like, I'm like so jealous right now. I'm like, in my head, I was like, I want that. Like, me and my wife have been together for almost a decade. We've been married for coming up on 4 years. And
Oh, congrats.
thank you. And it's what's the way you praise your husband, I absolutely love, because I feel the same way about my wife. And I just want that. I mean, I kind of want that. Like, just sitting there like, you know who you are. You got this. Like, that's great. And it comes from someone that truly believes it and loves you. So I'm sure it has to have a whole different feeling to it too than outside of your coach.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You should bring her in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, Mary, I like to end every conversation with, if you could give one piece of advice to a brand new white belt, what would it be?
Consistency is key. Consistency is key. And then if it scares you, try it. If it challenges you, try it. And then just don't give up. There's going to be some tough days on the mats, whether it's physically or mentally, emotionally. Some days you cry, some days you puke, some days you bleed. Some days you're really happy and, you're proud of yourself for accomplishing something, but stay with it, stick with it. And consistency is key. You're going to get a huge reward at the end.
What does consistency look like to you, though?
Going on the days where you don't want to. If it's your body telling you, maybe you shouldn't go, don't go. But if it's your mind telling you, Michaela really, submitted me last time and I'm scared to go back, I just threw my friend's name out there. I'm sorry.
They be listening to this like, why she call me out?
I've had those days, I'm like, damn, my friend really got me that time. I don't know if I want to go back, it kind of hurt me a little bit, my ego. But then I'm like, no, I should go back. I should challenge myself and I need to work through it. I don't mean going 3 hours a day, every other day. I mean, like, if you only have an hour a day, go an hour a day. Make sure you also go the next day for an hour and try to stick with that same routine. Don't try to squeeze 4 hours in one day and then not go for the rest of the week. So just kind of sticking to it with however much time you have.
Yeah, that's great. Because I definitely think some people out there might see the 4 hours for one day and doing it every week it is beneficial, but I definitely think the more time you can be on the mats, the better in succession, right? Like you mentioned, like the more consecutive days in a row, the better. Being there for 3 weeks straight, and then taking 2 weeks off, then coming for a week, and then taking a week off, like that's not gonna help you nearly as much as showing up with intent day after day and then really getting in there. So I think it's a great tip. If people want to follow you, where's the best place that they can follow you and see your journey and you jumping back into competing? I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to compete probably by January. We have a tournament January, February, and I think that's going to be my next goal. I only have an Instagram. I don't have Facebook, TikTok, or any of that stuff. I just have Instagram at Mary-Daizy held, or Mary-Daizy held, or Mary-Daizy BJJ. I don't even know.
I'll be sure to have the proper link down in the description if people want to follow her. So, but Mary, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a phenomenal conversation. I try to pick your brain as much as possible, and everything you came out of your answers was golden. I just want to thank you for spending the time today and going all the way to your office to have a quiet space. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. This was fun, and hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home. If you guys want to go follow Mary, everything's going to be down in the description below. Check out the links down below for all the sponsors. And guys, thank you so much. If you made it all the way, let me know. And remember, no oil checks here. Peace, guys.
Bye.